It was the night of Veronica's passing. Waxon paced his bedroom floor out of fear for Raikon's well-being. His mind was distorted as thoughts raced. He was thinking to himself about what could be done to end this force of nature that was now wreaking havoc across his duchy. Waxon's eyes caught the glint of the mirror, and he turned to see his reflection. He gazed into himself, and his impurities began to show. His hair and beard was gawky and twisted, filled with dirt and sweat. His lips were chipped and cracked like the rocky coasts of his castle. And his eyes, the light in Waxon's eyes dwindled to a place of utter darkness and defeat. Rubbing his face to secure his image, he turned around to put on his daily clothes. Waxon put on his exquisite black royal cloak, tinted with gold collars to cover his face and body. When Waxon left his chambers, he opened the door that faced the large courtyard. A fog thickened the air, and the ground was wet from the storm that occurred last night. Waxon rubbed his fidgety hands to keep warm and put on his wool gloves. While Waxon exhaled, his breath permeated and synchronized with the massive fog that blanketed the sky. With every step, the sound of puddles rippled through the courtyard as Waxon made his way to the secondary gates. As Waxon approached the large wooden gates of his protected citadel, he looked above to notice if he could see overhead. But as he looked straight up, arching his neck upward to the top of the massive gates, the fog clouded his vision and vanished into the mist of the air. Covering his face with his hood, Waxon stood at the center of the gate, staring into it. "Identification," a voice said from the mist. Waxon stood in his place, still staring at the gate. "I don't tend to ask again," the voice repeated as it got louder. Waxon then stepped sideways to face the voice. "Open the gates. There are errands to be made," replied Waxon. The gatekeeper emerged from the fog and walked closer to Waxon. "Bold of you to be so demanding in the powerless position you are in." Waxon's face crinkled as he looked up to the gatekeeper, revealing his face. "And this is why power needs to be evoked to get things done," he snarled. The gatekeeper startled backwards. "Oh, my apologies, Duke Waxon. Wait here for a few seconds." The gatekeeper rushed to the mechanisms of the gate, and the wood shrieked with creaking as it pushed outward into the fog. "Do you need my assistance, my lord? Perhaps an escort of the elites?" the gatekeeper asked. Waxon ignored the man and continued his journey through the unknown. Waxon turned towards the main street. Light flickers of lampposts could be seen in the distance. Waxon walked along the lengthy cobblestone highway road and followed the lantern's light. Passing by, he could see the people waking up and preparing for their morning routine. A man's voice could be heard through the air. "Did you hear about the death of Veronica?" Eowyn responded. "Yes, it's very depressing to hear of her passing. I do hope that Duke Waxon is marching forward, though." The man replied, "Ha! As if! That man has only been locked in his private tower, crying, while the rest of us have been dealing with the same hardships that he's facing." Waxon heard this and whispered to himself, "No longer." He made a sharp right off the main road and approached a sign near the outer layer of the stronghold wall built to protect the city. Waxon approached the stairs of the building, reading its banner, "The Merchants and Traders Guild." Waxon pushed the door open, and the scenery drastically changed. The guild was filled with bubbly merchants, sipping tea and ale and laughing up a storm. On Waxon's right, a smiling violinist was stomping her feet as her bow danced with the strings. On his left, there was a bar filled with bottles and drinks that were being guzzled and belched. A young lad with a smell of ale tripped his way behind Waxon and threw his shoulder onto him, wrapping him in his delight. "Welcome to the Merchants and Traders Guild. This isn't our usual setup, but rejoice! Yolfin has made a great acquisition to save this land." Waxon raised an eyebrow, but kept his face cloaked. He shrugged off the lad and traversed his way through the tables of lively people who were shouting and cheering. With this new information, Waxon headed his way towards the trading room on the second floor. Once he put his foot on the staircase, the sound of chairs screeched on the floor. A few men got up from a nearby table and headed over to Waxon. One of the men stepped forward. His height matched that of the Duke. He was tall and burly. His voice boomed. "No visitors allowed beyond this point. Judging by your look, you're giving me some seedy alerts. Step down." Waxon put his hand on the handrail to grasp it. While he ascended upwards, the men started following him. Hey, get down from there! Waxon rummaged through his cloak and threw down multiple sacks of gold coins and precious stones behind him. Greed overcame the men, who scurried downward to the goods. Hey, get off me! Is that a ruby? I can finally buy that feathered hat! Everyone in the room heard the ruckus, and the rest of the crowd squealed and oinked their way towards the wealth, shoving people to gloat and hoard the riches. While Waxon continued his ascent, you could see a portrait of a man hanging on the wall. The white, portly, freckled lad in the painting was wearing elegant white armor, looking schmuck with his curly mustache. When Waxon reached the doorway, you could hear giggling and sounds of sultry. Waxon banged on the door with his fist 3 times. Hold on there, said a goofy, loud voice. While the Duke waited, you could hear the woman quiet down as loud stomps ballooned towards the door. When the door shrieked open, a gleeful man as wide as the doorframe with messy hair greeted Waxon. Hello, good sir. What brings you to my office? Waxon peered over his head and saw a pretty woman covering herself with a blanket. Am I interrupting something important? Waxon asked, jolting his head back in place. Well, in a way, yes, but what brings you to Old Yulfin? I would like to discuss it here, if you don't mind, Waxon replied. Yes, of course. Annabelle, let us men discuss some business while you go fetch some clothes. Sure thing, Yulfin. Once she left, Yulfin smacked her butt and grinned. Way better than my old hag. During that moment, Waxon shook his head and pointed at Yulfin's desk, where a large inventory sheet lay with the title, The Purple Hue of Hondo. First, I would like to ask about what this document is about, Waxon probed. While Yulfin put on his shirt, he grabbed the document. Oh, this thing, nothing really. Just another day of success as a merchant. Waxon moved forward. I don't think you understand, Yulfin. I want the details of this transaction. Well, you're clearly being nosy, sir. Mind if you reveal your intentions first? Yulfin asked. Gladly, Waxon replied, removing his hood to reveal his face. Yulfin leaped back into his chair, shouting, Duke Waxon, hello, what brings you to the merchants? Where and how did you acquire this flower? Waxon interrupted. I got the flower some miles north of here, from other traders. I was told they had healing properties like no other, said Yulfin. And you did not question them on the validity of this flower? Waxon pressed. Yulfin's face became hot, and sweat was building up. Well, you know, Duke Waxon. I take pride in my work and expect nothing less. I'm always a tough bargainer. Waxon leaned in further towards Yulfin. You're lying. No, of course I'm not. Why do you accuse me? You're looking a little distressed, Yulfin. It gives it away. Yulfin jumped from his seat and braced himself on a nearby window. I could explain everything, my lord. The traders from the land of Honkoboros in the village of Hondo said, this flower is not officially in season yet, but they mentioned a breed related to this flower that grows wildly in other places of their jurisdiction. So, I decided to take a gamble and buy it off of them. Waxon leaned straight back up. So, you went forward with the process, knowing you were deceiving and killing lives with your greedy acts. Yulfin cleared his throat and began to sob. Forgive me, my lord. I wasn't at my best. Waxon put his hand on Yulfin's shoulder, rubbing it back and forth. Waxon then leaned in, again whispering, You never were. Suddenly, Waxon grabbed Yulfin's collar and threw him furiously outside the doorway. Annabelle screamed as she rushed to see Yulfin on the ground. Waxon repeatedly kicked Yulfin's face with his boot. The more he kicked, the more reminded him of Veronica's last moments, feeling the rage even more, making his face hot. Waxon finally kicked Yulfin down the stairs. Just as he tumbled and bumped his way down, the crowd on the first floor stood up in horror and shock. Emerging down the stairs, a mighty and furious Waxon descended upon them, eyeing everyone in the room intensely. Waxon roared, You call this the Merchants and Traders Guild, but you are nothing more than a den of thieves. While the people looked up upon their leader Yulfin, bruised and bloodied, they stood in silence. Waxon continued, Traitors to your land and people, This establishment will be under my acquisition from here on out. With those final words, Waxon closed his mouth and breathed through his nostrils with fiery flares. Waxon left the guild unmasked and filled with purpose. The purpose of his next course of action: vengeance.